Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering one of the One Piece movies, Baron Omatsuri and the Secret Island. In this episode, kiddos, this was a pretty dark installment. Oh my god. I really liked this movie, but I wasn't ready for how serious we were going to be about it. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you so much to Max for commissioning this episode. For those of you who are listening who maybe haven't seen this movie and you're wondering where I found it to watch, Max sent me a file to download because you could just open it from the Google file, but it doesn't have subtitles. If you do that, it's just in Japanese. So in order for the subtitles to show up, you have to actually download it. I don't know why, but that's how it worked. And otherwise, I could only find it on DVD for $100. It was insane. But otherwise, couldn't find it streaming literally anywhere. So if you're wanting to watch along and you've been looking for it and are kind of frustrated, sorry about that. I will see if I can share this Google Drive file in the Discord, actually, when I'm thinking of it. I'm just going to go ahead and do that now since I have Discord open, and any of you who are interested can go and check it out. But yeah, I was really unprepared for the intensity of this movie, and I am impressed. Honestly, it's not just being more serious makes something better, which is a thing I think DC could learn from. Everybody seemed to go through this era for a while where they were let's make it all gray and angsty and gritty, and that will mean that we are serious. And frankly, that's horseshit, and it's weak sauce, and it's very immature. But this was just really well done. And I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did. I'll be honest. I kind of expected it to be a wild romp that was sort of off the wall. But I didn't think that I was going to be so moved isn't quite the right word, although there were times when it was moving. It's more I was disturbed by it in a way that One Piece doesn't often get to me, Florian says, as far as I know, this is considered the best OP movie by lots of fans. Yeah, Max's email, he said something it's very different. So let's see, I'm going to read what his email says. It's kind of a 50-50 shot whether you will like the movie or hate it, since it has story elements I think you may enjoy. But on the other hand, it is pretty different from the One Piece you know and love, to the point where most people consider it a good movie, but not a good One Piece movie. If you aren't feeling it, given all the hoops you have to jump through to watch it, no worries. But if you do want to move forward with it, let me know, and I'll drop the money in PayPal. This is when we were still talking about whether I would cover it. And, yeah, I think that this was a win for sure, Max. I really liked it, and I even though it is very different tonally than the One Piece I know and love, I still felt like the characters were familiar, and I felt like it felt like a One Piece movie. It was just a really different energy, mostly. But yeah, I just was really, if the first thing that I want to ask, because I didn't look up any information on this to start off with, and I didn't have time before recording after watching it. But what year did this come out? Because there is some wild animation stuff going on in this film. And it's not I won't say it's bad. It's certainly not bad exactly. In some ways, I almost feel like the weirdness of the animation is what makes it feel so unnerving. Because they have these photorealistic backgrounds, or for example, like the Goldfish, when they get to that part, it looks like it's made in CGI. You know, it's not animated the same way. It's not a line drawing the way everybody else is. And so you've got these moments that are, they feel in some ways really beautiful, but there is like an uncanny valley element to them that is almost like a signal to you as a viewer that shit ain't right, you know? And I don't know if that is intentionally what they were trying to do, or if that's just a side effect of the animation improving over time. And now we look at this stuff and we're kind of like, yeah, this is fucking creepy. But either way, it works really well to me to make me feel like something's not great in this place. And I don't know what it is, because it's like clearly meant to be beautiful. And in a way it sort of is, but there's just a part, like an edge to it that I'm like, no, I don't think so. So we start this off with everybody looking at this brochure for an island that has this like reputation. It's called Omatsuri, which I think it's Robin who says something, or maybe it's Nami, but Zoro asks, why do they call it Omatsuri Island? And he asks, do they hold festivals or something? And then Robin says, the only pleasure island resort in the Grand Line, as its name implies, every day is a festival. So I'm guessing Omatsuri means festival. And it says you can enjoy spas and beauty salons, which gets Nami's attention. Your nightlife will be filled with beauties from around the world and a selection of like choice beverages, which makes Sanji turn around. And then dinner will be a full course of exquisite cuisine, which is what gets Chopper's attention, which I actually kind of found surprising. I don't think that of Chopper as being somebody who's like super food oriented. I thought that would have also appealed to Sanji. And if not, then definitely Luffy. But Luffy doesn't chime in here initially. They have to like ask him what he thinks about it. Usopp is the one who sees it as a trap. Immediately is like, this is not what it looks like. And I was like kind of amazed in retrospect that he had the foresight to see this, because Usopp is a lot of times the one who's the most credulous out of everybody. You know, he and Chopper are the ones that tend to be pretty gullible. And I would have thought that this would really speak to him and win him over. But there isn't like a particular element mentioned here that I guess would really get his attention. He's not particularly girl crazy. He doesn't seem to care that much about food or drinking. So really what we've seen that he's into is like gadgets and stuff. And that's not really a resort thing. So this is when they ask like, Luffy, what do you think? And he asks Nami to read the first part again, which says, if you are a pirate among pirates, among pirates, among pirates, gather your steadfast crew of Nakama and set sail for our island. And Nakama is a word that is just the central theme of this episode. I say episode of this movie. And I had never heard it before. I don't remember if it's used a lot in the actual show, because I don't like the subtitles here, you know, they use the word in Japanese. In the dub, I think they probably have translated the word. But that said, it means friend or colleague or comrade, you know, just somebody that is your pal, you know, and that could be on a professional level, or it could be on a personal level, or it could be both. And it's super, super meaningful. So that's what gets Luffy to be like, yeah, let's go, instead of the food thing, which does like make sense in a character way. But I also really wanted him to get psyched up about the food, and he doesn't really mention it, although there is a food-centric challenge later, which he's really, really into. And we get this cool, like, there's the opening credits, and the ship, we are seeing it from high above, as if on a map, or as if you're in an airplane, really, because when you're in an airplane, you can see like weird details, but it's still high up, and you can see like these islands with the reefs around them, and the ship moving with the wake, and it's this white streak. And at one point there's like a close-up of the ship in this clear water, and as they're pulling up, there's all sorts of people like enjoying the water, hanging out in hammocks. It looks incredibly alluring. There's just a whole energy to it that feels like a vacation spot. And I'm thinking that's where we're heading. But they pass by that area. That's not the island that they stop at. So I got myself like in a, oh, sweet, it is a resort kind of mindset. And then it turns out that's not even like the spot where they're heading. And there's also a really cool moment of like a cloud far away that's pouring rain, and all of these rainbows that pop up. Just like little moments of atmosphere like that I thought were really, really effective. And even as they're coming up on the island, the camera, so to speak, is really low. And so the waves are sort of obscuring the island a little bit as it's like, and I don't know, I just really loved the way all of this was animated. And I felt like I wish this show did a little bit more of this, because I sometimes feel as if I lose the sense of place with the show. And a lot of it is we're on the ship, and sure, there's water around, but you don't really see them passing other islands. We see them arriving places, and that's it. You don't like get the feeling of travel the same way, if you get what I'm saying. There was something about this that I felt as if I had sailed there with them. And I don't know, I just found it to be like kind of refreshing, and it made me long for a bit more of this in the show. And it's funny, again, with the way that the show will stretch some things out more than it should. I feel like they could do this. They could add these moments in, and it would be a really great way to fill time and not have to like draw other parts out unnecessarily. And it would be beautiful, and it would set atmosphere really well. So they get to the island, and apparently, like at first, they're looking around and it doesn't really seem particularly exciting. And Usopp is like, I don't get it. This doesn't seem like the place. But Nami is 100% sure. She's like, come on. Have I ever made that kind of mistake before? I've always been right. So, and this is when we get one of our first shots that I was like, what is happening here? Because everybody is standing on the beach, and they are in their, their animation style with this very cartoony look. But in the background is this jungle that looks like it's from a video game, and I was just like, what is happening? This is the first real inkling you get of how different the animation is going to be I was going to say in the background, but like I said, that Goldfish also had this weird animation style, and that is not a background thing. So anyway, at this point, they hear something. Luffy says, this way. They make their way through the jungle, which we kind of go back to the regular animation style for this sequence and see all of these beautiful places. It's really, really cool, honestly. Like, it looks really good. And then we break out into the open, and this really should have been the part where everybody got suspicious, because if you are a resort island, you are not going to make it difficult to find the place you're heading. This isn't how it would work. But Florian says it's a big part of the series, yeah, and Nakama is a soulmate, just not in a romantic way. There's no real translation. I love that. It didn't say that when I looked up what it meant. It didn't but I really, really like that version, a platonic soulmate. that's, I can't, the fact that there's like no real translation, is that so telling or what? Like, soulmate is not an inherently romantic word. We see it that way when we use it, because that's the only way Americans at least tend to really use it. I'm going to say Westerners in general. But it's not inherently romantic. We just don't see the value of friendships the same way we see the value of romances. And it's a shame. Anyway, so this is when they break out into the open and you see this place that looks like a cross between some place in like Prague, the Taj Mahal, and a carnival. This place is wild looking. Like, the whole vibe of it is overwhelm. And that's really what you get. Everybody's like looking around at these different areas and seeing where they think the spot that holds their particular interest is going to be. And they are very, very into it. But again, there's no people. So I'm like, what is this? You've got this amazing city, but I don't see a single other human being. And then all of these people come out and like, they're in these dance outfits. And they hold their leg out, and it's a very sort of like, what are they? The Rockettes from New York. If you've ever gone to see them, it's a good time. It's like very splashy spectacle, you know. But they all have fans over their face, and when they pull their fans back, even though they're in dresses, it's definitely dudes. And they have these weird like plant extensions growing up out of the top of their heads. And I immediately was like, okay, these are pod people. Like, something's really, really not okay here. But nobody seems as worried about this as they should. So then we hear the cry of elephants. There are trunks. And this elephant comes out with this dude who is wearing an outfit, the likes of which, I mean, first of all, his hair is kind of beautifully done, because the hair that's coming up off the top of his head is very reminiscent of the plant thing that everybody else has got going on. But for him, there is an actual flower growing out of his shoulder. It's a different energy, and it's got a face. It's not a simple plant. So it's a whole different situation with him, clearly. And he greets them as courageous pirates. I congratulate you on reaching Omatsuri Island. My name is Baron Omatsuri. I am your host. And everybody gets very excited thinking that he is going to offer them some of the comforts and recreation that they've been looking for. You may enjoy yourselves to your heart's content, but before you do, you must, long pause, undertake the ordeal of hell. Now, I just want to take a moment here. You guys know that, like, I never really warmed up to Robin that much. But she is wearing this vacation outfit in this movie that is just flawless. It's this, like, white ensemble, a sort of 1940s look with this wide-brimmed hat. I mean, it is so good. So every time we would go over to her, I was just like, oh my God, Robin, serve. It is just excellent. And later on, Zorro changes into an outfit that I was like, all right, Zorro, shit, because he looks fine as hell. So Nami says, the note that we found said something about spas and beauty salons. And they, you know, all talk about the things that they were looking for. And this Baron is acting like he has never heard of any of the things they're talking about. Like it's a complete mystery. So instantly, Usopp, Nami, and Sanji are all like, okay, we're leaving. And of course, Luffy is like, I don't know, this ordeal of hell sounds pretty cool. And of course, I'm kind of relieved at how much Luffy takes it to heart that this shit was his fault later, because like it was everybody's decision to come here at all. So I don't want to lay the blame solely at his door. I'm not sure that by the time they got here, if they decided to turn around and leave, that they would have been allowed to turn around and leave. You know, I'll be honest, that as much as I want to blame him solely for keeping them here, maybe it was already too late. But he really does have to like push this shit here. So, this dude says, countless many have failed to endure the task. And it says in the translation, fled barefoot from this island, which I thought was a really weird way of saying this. I don't know what barefoot is meant to signify. If it's just supposed to be like, they literally like left everything behind to flee. It feels evocative, even though I don't really get it. And Nami is the one who yells at him and is just like, what would we gain from accepting this? We don't have to do it. And Luffy is like, yeah, I know we don't have to, but I want to try it. And I trust that all of you guys will be able to handle yourselves. I believe that you guys can do it. And everybody is sort of won over by that. And of course, Zoro himself is like, honestly, I'm kind of interested. And Robin also chimes in and is like, yeah, you know what? Let's do it. I forgot to mention that Robin, she's got like her outfit also comes with a piece of luggage sitting by her. Like she just looks like she has landed in Cuba in like, 1951 and is going to be going to a very luxurious resort to meet her boy toy. So, as he says, prepare the ordeal of hell. The whole place begins to move around and literally like the ground shifts underneath them and it is banana pants crazy. I feel that this in particular should have been also more of a warning, but they are in too deep at this point. So the first thing that they have to do is goldfish catching. And there is a pool that rises up between them that has regular goldfish in it. And everything turns into stands. So all of the people that have been standing around are like now audience members of this arena. And the Baron says the team that captures the largest goldfish in 3 minutes wins. And they understandably are like, no problem, this is super easy. And he gives them a sort of net to catch it with, but it dissolves in water. So they would have to do it like really, really quickly. And he says, now I'm going to present my opponent. And this dude, who I really enjoy the whole vibe he brings to things. This dude comes running forward in shorts that look like they belong in 1998. And he says that he is Muchigoro and he has his own little scoop as well. So everybody is like, let's do this. No problem. He looks like an idiot. I am not concerned. And they're like, all right, so which one of you wants to go first? And I love this, guys. This is when Usopp is like, don't worry, guys. I've got this handled. And he tells Muchigoro, you're going to regret being my opponent. You'll be facing the man known as the master of goldfish catching, me. And this dude totally falls for it. Usopp is like, yes, really, I am not to be trifled with. And this guy says, please say you're lying. And then Usopp just says, I'm lying. I have to mention as well, of course, Chopper fucking is wholly believing this bullshit because he is a precious angel. So the Baron says we shall now begin. And as Usopp is diving forward to get his goldfish, he hears something. And he turns around to see this massive goldfish, saying it's the size of a whale. I'm not even sure that's accurate. Maybe like a sperm whale, one of the bigger guys, a blue whale. But this is the first thing that's like living, animated in that weird way. And so it really makes a sort of uncanny valley effect for a creature that is supposed to be really creepy, and it works excellently. And of course, Luffy, for his part, is just like, oh, this is amazing. We are 100% catching this fish, no problem. And so we basically have our usual, all of our friends work together to take this fish down kind of thing. Like everybody chimes in with their bit. And by chimes in with their bit, I mean Usopp hands over the little catcher to Nami and runs away. So Nami watches this fish coming for her. Truly, the fucking animation of this is so scary. And Sanji jumps in and kicks it away. It has like golden armor looking on its body. It's got a very like Thanos sort of vibe because of the gemstones embedded in it. But yeah, so Sanji kicks it aside. She hands the thing to Zoro, who jumps in the air. He begins to draw his katana, and he's told as he does this that katanas are not allowed. So he has to use the sheath instead and bashes the fish off to the side, which I did feel kind of bad for this fish. And then as it's falling, Luffy says, all right, I'm going to use the net. And this is the first time he's showing off his devil fruit power. He hits the fish with the net and it goes flying again. This fish at this point has been airborne for what feels like a full 5 minutes. And then the Baron says, Muchigoro, you have to show them. And he gets this giant ass paddle out of a backpack, I guess. And when everybody's like, how come he gets that one? The Baron is like, well, nobody said you had to use the one that I gave you. I only said that paper dissolves easily in water. And they all realize that he basically like fucking tricked them, which is cowardly and shitty. So he's trying to lure the fish over to him, and it gets caught in his weird net, and he is like chucking it toward the bucket. This whole thing is really something to watch, you guys. I love it's floating in the air as everybody is cheering. And this is when Robin says, oh, so there were never any rules to begin with. Then it's fine. And she makes her arms come out of the bucket. They all link together to create a net, and they chuck the fish out of the bucket. And who should be standing right under the fish saying he can handle this but Chopper? You guys, I don't know what he's thinking. He eats a rumble ball. He inflates in a way that I don't think we've ever seen him do before. And the fish basically like bounces off him into the bucket. So they technically win this one. And the fucking creepy flower sitting on the Baron's shoulder had been calling the time, and it says, game over, the Straw Hats win. And I was just like, what is the deal with this weird flower? Because I at first thought it was like a little creature that he was friends with, but the Baron never like turns to it to acknowledge it. And later on he does, he like kind of talks to it. But at first I was sort of like, I don't know what to make of this thing. At this point, Chopper falls into the water because he's dazed and confused from having been bashed by a fish. Luffy, like a jerk-off, jumps in the water to save him even though he himself cannot swim. And then Sanji jumps in to save both of them because he is a very good boy. And we see when they are underwater briefly, all of these other ships that are like busted up sitting at the bottom of the ocean. It's unclear to me whether they saw all of the ships. I don't think they do. I think it's supposed to be just for our benefit that we know something is up here. But anyway, so this is when Luffy is like, all right, so we won. This is awesome. What's up with the next challenge? And I love when they're just like, I can't believe you called that the ordeal of hell. That was really nothing. So he says, well, it's not finished. There's another one. I won't allow this to go unpunished. And I loved that initially that Muchigoro, who is devastated that he failed, it seemed, I was expecting the Baron to be like, you piece of shit, I can't believe that you let me down. Instead, the Baron is like, I can't believe you made my Muchigoro cry. And once you know what's going on, it makes a lot more sense. But at the moment, I was just kind of like, oh, he's like very protective. That's kind of cute and not what I thought he was going to be like. I expected him to be a real hard ass. So this is when Luffy's like, yeah, another ordeal sounds dope. Let's do it. And of course, everybody is like, dude, come on. We weren't here to like play around. This was supposed to be a rest. And he is not hearing it. Nami is like ready to kick the shit out of him. This is the first time that we see a little dude with the mustache. I can't remember his actual name, but we're just going to call him Mustache. And he is observing things from the woods. He's got his little, what do you call them, binoculars that he's spying on them with. So guys, this is a part where they're going through the jungle. And before, it was just cool line drawings. This looks like it was meant to be watched with 3D glasses. It's got a very POV video game sort of animation to it. And it is awful. This like Uncanny Valley animation is fine for all of the other places it's been put. This, though, is the one spot where I was like, this is super distracting. What are we doing? It looks so bad. And I think, you know, if it's in the background and we've got our characters in the foreground, then fine. But when it's the focus of everything, not so good. Even if it's like the fish, because it's meant to be scary, fine. But yeah, they're looking at the map and realizing that it really doesn't help all that much. And they find this spot where somebody had just been having a picnic off to the side in the middle of this jungle, which is, we have almost the identical 3D animation of them wandering around the jungle repeat itself, because somebody, I guess, just loved it so much that they were like, yeah, we absolutely should just use this again. Easily the worst part of the movie. So this is when they arrive at a very weird stage. And I really enjoy this particular ordeal because it involves these old people who have such attitudes. They are great. So the point of this one is ring toss. And each team has 2 boats with 2 people aboard. The first team to ensnare all of their opponents in rings wins. And we have got every single one of these old people is in a kind of frog costume. They are adorable and not to be fucked with. I just really, really enjoy these outfits, guys. I would not mind dressing up as one of these for Halloween. Kuroko, obviously, like the pink frog. I mean, it's hard to go wrong. And they all comment on the fact that, like, Nami has lost her temper, to which she's like, yeah, it's my personality. I have a quick temper. Like, what are you going to fight me about it? And I do sort of like her just being like, hey, you know what? Yeah, I am fucking pissed. I have the right to be pissed. This is bullshit. And I was like, yeah, you know what? She's right. So we begin the next ordeal where we've got Zoro and Sanji on one boat because they really work so well together. Why would we not put the two of them on one of the boats? Such a bad choice. And then we've got Nami and Usopp on the other boat. I don't think that we see the decision of who goes on which boat. I was very surprised that we don't have involvement from Luffy where he wants to be on one of them, but apparently we're just going to skip over that part. It's fine. And notably, the island once again sort of like moves in such a way as to make these canals for them to go racing down. And so it's a really weird moment of seeing the like city just sort of appear before their eyes, and Nami is just like, what is happening here? So this is when they find out they have met their match in these old folks. Like, they're very surprised that they're going up against old people to begin with, thinking that it's not going to be a big deal to beat them. And it turns out they have like regular boats, and the old people have boats that are like Bond villain level with like all kinds of contraptions and shit built in to cause them to sink. Or there's at one point they're obscuring vision by just like grilling food on the back of one of the boats and causing all of the smoke to fly into their eyes, which honestly was so great. It was like a combo of the fact that it's just a very practical way to make smoke. It's like, oh yeah, we're also going to make lunch. But I love that when we're with Usopp, he says something about how, oh man, I'm kind of hungry now. It's a very good distracting weapon. Just be like, oh, that smells really good. So this is when we go over to Luffy, who is in the hotel. And again, it's just really weird to me that he's not participating in this ordeal. I just, but anyway. He's standing in the lobby, and somebody keeps pelting him with rocks that increase in size as he continues to stand there. And eventually, this dude who is about to bash him, he turns around and catches him. The guy is holding a rock the size of like a loaf of bread. And he has got that weird mustache. It's the dude that we saw spying on them from the jungle. So Luffy goes and chases after him. I'm going to wrap things up with the second ordeal by just being like, they win. I feel like that's adequate, mostly. We get the usual sort of infighting between Zoro and Sanji. The dub has Sanji calling Zoro Moss Head, but in this it was translated as Green Tea Head, which I am assuming is true to the television show as well. I don't remember that, but I did find it kind of funny the way that was changed. And yeah, there's this weird moment, and I don't recall exactly how he gets here, because Chopper is just exploring the city, and it sort of jump cuts between different areas. And so it seems like he's just wandering around, but we never really see him walking, so it feels strange. But he suddenly turns up in this absolutely massive graveyard. And there are wreaths at every single grave, which he notes and says like something about flowers, which I thought was a weird thing to note because plenty of people put flowers at graves, and that doesn't really seem that unusual to me. I think it was supposed to be sort of hinting at what it turns out is happening here. But at the time, I was just sort of like, why is that the weird part? Isn't it just like the sheer number of them that would throw you off? So he's standing there looking at this, and this shadow is creeping up behind him. And it's this dude who is, as we find out, pretty much a coward. And he is attempting to save face in front of his kids and make it seem like he's actually a badass who is protecting them, when in fact he's like barely holding it together. And it turns out the kids all kind of know this, but they keep it to themselves. And he thinks that Chopper is one of the Baron's minions, as he calls him. But when he realizes what the deal is actually, he's like, oh shit, well then maybe you could be on our side. We're pirates as well. Our family are pirates. But we aren't too well known. The kids behind me are my daughters and my son. And this is when we jump to this weird, there are so many like subplots that happen in this. I'm trying to see where to go next with it, because this conversation with Chopper, he like gets to know this guy and agrees that he is going to pretend that the dude like overpowered him in order to help him save face. But the place we go next is Luffy at the hotel chasing down this dude who wants Luffy to become his nakama. And nakama? Actually, I'm realizing I don't remember how they pronounced it. But this dude tells Luffy to beware of the Baron because he separates nakama. And that, for me, was like pretty clear. At one point, everybody's sort of wondering, why is he setting up these contests to determine who is the strongest? And I felt like it seems pretty clear that he's wanting to sort out the toughest ones. But I'm not entirely sure now why it is. At the time, I was like, he wants to try and get the strongest players to be part of his own crew. But I think it's supposed to be that he's feeding the strongest people to the plant in order to get the plant stronger. Like, they do more than a regular person would. I'm not totally sure that that's how it works, but I think. So this is when we go, you guys, I love this so much. The next ordeal is this like cooking competition, and it is the best. Y'all know I love any time that we get to see Sanji doing his thing with food, because a lot of the times it's just him like in the background cooking, or it just is him showing up with a full plate of stuff. And here we get to actually see him making it. Right before this, we have that weird encounter with this kid who looks like a frog who wants Usopp's hat. And when Usopp refuses to give it to him, this kid says he won't forgive him and gives him this like look, and it's really freaky. His eyes change color. But yeah, we go. So the whole like the way that this cooking competition works, they are standing on a flat top griddle, basically. And they each have like shoes on that makes it so they can kind of like skate around, and they're making massive, massive amounts of food. And this one dude who is competing against Sanji makes these noodles, and Sanji takes the noodles and rolls them into a ball, and then makes an omelet, which he tosses into the air. The noodles land on the griddle, and then the egg pancake turns over and lands on it. And he puts a layer of sauce on it, like maybe a hoisin sauce or, I don't know, teriyaki sauce, some mayonnaise, and then he tosses bonito flakes. And I love this line. As the veil-like bonito flakes dance in the air, my modanyaki is complete. Modanyaki, okonomiyaki with yakisoba noodles. Y'all, I'm going to go ahead and look up what modanyaki is right now, because that does not help me. I don't know what that means. Modanyaki means modern yaki. It's simply okonomiyaki with yakisoba noodles. Thank you, but I don't know what okonomiyaki is. Fucking Google telling me the exact same shit he did. I don't know what that is. So I'm looking up okonomiyaki now. A popular street food from Osaka, okonomiyaki is a delicious Japanese savory pancake grilled as you like it with your choice of protein and tasty condiments and toppings. And there's a picture here with the bonito flakes on top. This looks really good, you guys. I think I'm just hungry, but no, for real. This looks really, really good. This is making me want to like try some cooking. The thing is, around here, I got so used to shopping for ingredients in Philadelphia where you could like get anything. And now I moved here, and like if I want to find ingredients that are a little bit off the beaten track from a regular normie American palate, I have to drive like 45 minutes to an hour to a store that sells that stuff, and it's a pain in the ass. There was also another thing, because this is reminding me the way that it's like a pancake that's topped with a bunch of stuff. I saw a video the other day, a reel on Facebook, where this lady takes rice that's left over, like the kind of sticky rice, and she presses it in a waffle maker and makes it super crispy on the outside, and then it's got that dense rice inside, and she just tops it with all kinds of stuff. And she topped it with like avocado and raw fish, but you could do absolutely anything and it would be really good on that crispy waffle, a savory waffle. So yeah, lots of ideas today that are calling out to me. But it just, this moment of him tossing the bonito flakes and standing posing as he tosses them and then says, and that's how it's done. And this chef is just like, that's impossible. And he sinks to his knees and puts his hands down on the fucking like grill. And he's feeling himself and thinking like, oh, at least Robin is going to really appreciate how well I did. He turns and Robin's gone. And when he tries to get Nami's attention, she's sitting with that mochi guy. I can't remember his name. Which she's just trying to get some information out of him. But he is very disappointed. Meanwhile, of course, Luffy literally dives headfirst into this meal because why wouldn't he? So yeah, she is talking with him and she's trying to get him drunk in order to find out what the hell's going on. But she gets him a little too drunk. He is struggling. So she calls the Baron the flower guy, which this guy takes exception to. And he says he's a great man, strong and courageous, and he's kind, the greatest of the greatest of the greatest of men. And all he says is like, because she's trying to get she's asking him questions, but she's being like very, she's not getting to the point. And I know that's part of questioning this in this fashion effectively, is that you can't be too direct, or it's very clear what you're trying to do. But this guy asks, why are you drinking with me instead of your nakama? And she says, I don't know. We've never fought like this before. I just thought to myself that I wanted to hear about Mochi. And when he's like, who's that? Well, your name is Muchigoro, so I call you Muchi. And he starts sweating and looks like kind of like he doesn't know what to do. And then all of a sudden is like, actually, no, you know what? I'm into it. Yeah, let's go with that. This is when we see Zoro in this outfit, you guys. He's wearing a black suit with a white collared shirt that he has like unbuttoned to almost his belly button with a gold chain on. And this look works for him. I am just saying it is a good look on him. And I'm not trying to say that he doesn't look good in anything, because Zoro is bae, but this is the best look on him, I think, ever. I will say, though, earlier when Sanji is taking the challenge to do this like food thing, he looks pretty bae there as well, because he was like not ruffled at all by anybody's suggestion that he wasn't up to it. And then when Luffy complimented the guy on the food that he was making, that was when Sanji was like, you know what? Fuck this. And I fucking felt that in my soul, man. Nobody is going to try and come at me about my cooking. It's not happening. I'm not going to allow it. Straight up. So anyway, he runs off trying to find Robin. Zoro's looking around and is just like, what is happening even tonight? And this is as close to like a real resort vibe as we get. We have all the people like that are sort of standing around looking, sitting at tables and eating the food that he has made. And, you know, with the fire and the torches and everything, it feels like really relaxed and nice. So I started to sort of let my guard down a little bit here. But this is when we cut to Robin, who is looking out at this area with tons and tons of busted up ships. And she doesn't say anything, but it's clearly like bad news. And this Mochi dude, he says that they were the Red Arrows, a really strong pirate crew. I'm sure the Baron could even beat Roger. And she says, which Roger are you talking about? And he's like, well, Gold Roger. What do you mean, which Roger? There's one Roger, like, come on. And she says, well, he was executed a long time ago, though. Like, he's been dead for 20 years. And this guy says, what are you talking about? There is no way that's true. And I should have realized what was happening here, but I wasn't getting it. So this guy says, I just met him recently, and we're seeing like flashes of this storm. And he says before that stormy night, and as he's saying this, the camera keeps going back to this like, candle that's guttering lower and lower in its holder. And Muchi is looking away from her and clearly like not really focused on the conversation. He's caught up in some weird memory. We see the broken up ships, and because we cut over to Robin here, who's just like, what is happening? What is going on over here? And oh, that's right. She turns to this figure that's sitting there. She says, I thought I would find it here. I think it's her that's saying it or thinking it. But the Baron is like sitting and watching her. And Muchi says, the secret flower, the lily carnation. And the Baron is sort of finishing his sentence in a whole other place, the flower of death and rebirth. And Robin turns around and we see this thing like towering over her. And it is so weird, you guys, because I don't understand exactly how this thing works. It looks like a giant pipe, but it's not hollow. Well, it kind of is, but it's just a really weird thing. She sees it and she's like, you call that a flower? And as she's looking at this, we cut back to Muchi, who's like crying and trembling. And Nami says, what happened that night, Muchi? And he drops his hands and looks at her, and his face is like rotting away. It's truly horrifying, you guys. It's really, really creepy. Like, it's just so sudden and unexpected with everything that's going on. And he gets up and stumbles off and says, I'm so sorry. And there's a real, like, energy to it of, I just drank too much. I'm going to be sick almost, you know? It doesn't, like, if you missed what his face was doing, you might not understand the intensity of what's happening. So Robin, for her part, is like stuck with this fucking psycho who pulls his bow out. And you guys, this moment was so unnerving to me because she's looking at the thing and she's like, you can't call that a flower. That's like that thing. That's not what it is. And when she turns and looks at the Baron, the flower on his shoulder gets this really excited expression on its face that's so extra creepy because of how harmless its face otherwise seems to be. So when it gets this like eager expression, it's extra creepy. So this is when everybody gets together and is like, where is Robin? She said she was going to look for a flower. And of course, Nami shows up and she's like, I heard about a flower too. And they all realize that they don't know where Usopp is. And this is when it gets a little personal. And Sanji starts accusing, first of all, he gets mad at Zoro for not keeping an eye on them, to which Zoro rightfully is like, they're not children. I can't do that 24/7, which I think is fair. But this is when Sanji is like, this is your fault, dude. You're the reason that we're even here. And you have to do something about it. You're the one who got us into this. So this is, you guys, this is so freaky. Muchi is on the ground. He's got like teeth missing. He is a disaster. And the Baron walks up, sees him there, and instead of really reacting like I would expect, maybe like nothing to see here, instead he's like, all right, it's time for the next ordeal. And he just like moves it along. So this is when the DJ shows up, and he's the one who stole Usopp's hat, which, to their credit, Sanji and Zoro immediately recognize. They see the hat and they're instantly like, come on, kid. We know that you fucking took that from our friend. Where is he? What did you do to him? And I love the fact that they get his name wrong and he's super offended by it. So this is when he says, the Baron says, if you want to find your friends, you have to get through the next ordeal. And they're like, give me a fucking break. You're going to tell us where our friends are. And when he refuses, both Sanji and Zoro are like, fuck this shit. We're bailing. And the next ordeal is sharpshooters that are going to hunt them. And they have to dodge. And it's a really eerie moment because Nami is trying to get Luffy's attention, and Luffy clearly is like so affected by the accusation levied against him that this is all his fault that he doesn't even move when it's time to run. And all the sharpshooters just go right past him. They don't give him the time of day. They don't seem to be like, oh, perfect opportunity. This kid isn't defending himself. Let's just go after him. It's just him and the Baron sort of facing down. And he had been, warned about the fact that the Nakama were going to vanish, that they would be separated from each other. But he's only just starting to really understand how real this threat is. So the Baron fires an arrow at him. And this arrow, first of all, materializes out of nowhere on the end. Like, it's really weird how it forms, but this guy can apparently just make bunches of them appear at once, because we see him fire like hundreds of these. And I have to assume that Will White watched this movie, because there is a lot about the vibe of this that I feel in the Cradle books, and the whole thing with this like archer, it's just giving malice to me. So for those of you who are not fans of Cradle, if you're listening to this podcast, you should definitely go read Cradle. I'm just saying. So the whole thing with like Zoro and Sanji bailing, they don't get to bail is the thing. Like, they run off and act like they're not going to participate, but they are still being hunted. And this kid, the DJ, is like really not here to play. He's throwing these discs that like explode on impact. And he says something about how they can't get away. And they like, he's riding what almost looks like it's like a turtle shell, but it's been made into a skateboard, I guess. It's a really, the whole vibe of this kid is so off-putting. You know, the fact that he's got like no nose, the fact that he has this weird like plant growing out of his head, just the whole thing. So not Sanji, Zoro goes up against him and is basically like, fuck you, kid. I can't believe you did this. What are you even trying here? And he delivers a cut and the kid does not bleed. He doesn't even get hurt at all. It's a really weird moment. And he doesn't seem to understand why not. He's looking at it like, that's weird. Why isn't that doing anything? And Zoro also is like, I don't get it. What trick are you using? The Baron comes up behind Zoro and takes him down with an arrow. And so DJ comes over to the Baron and is like, hey, how come I never get hurt? What's the deal? And the Baron is just like, you're very strong. That's why. And he's like, but I'm not really that strong. And he's like, no, but you are though. And he says, yeah, okay, I guess I really am. He promises to go and find Luffy. And he starts walking away and begins to stumble. And says, I feel weird, but this does happen all the time. And he puts his hand to his face, and when he takes it away, he's gotten really gaunt. And his eyes are doing weird, like, circles within circles sort of things. Extremely creepy. So, you guys, it's just... I really, like, I hate this whole thing. The way it's being revealed, I just think is so well done because you know something is wrong, but you're still not quite getting what the fuck, you know? So we've got all these dudes that were sharpshooters and they have collapsed inside the building that they had like chased the boys into. And one of them says something about how he doesn't feel good and maybe he overdid it. And let's just take a rest. And once we rest, we'll be fine. And it's like none of them are aware of what's happening to them either. Which I feel like it would be a really different energy if they were all in on it. But the fact that they don't seem to get it is what makes this so extra sad. And it adds an element of like, there was not consent involved here, you know? It's really, really reminding me of Moria, but done in a extremely serious sort of way versus like the over-the-top goofiness of that island. This is a real investigation of like what you'd be willing to do, you know? So we go to Luffy, who is sitting with the guy with the mustache, who wants him to become one of his Nakama. He admits eventually that he's the only one left and tries to convince Luffy that he has to become one in order to get the, like, map, so to speak, of how to get out of this place. Because every door he leaves through, he winds up back in this room. And this is when Luffy sees the picture of him and the guy finally says, I'm currently the only member left. And we find out later this dude was the captain. And he says something about, you know, the day that they were all swallowed by that gigantic monster. And we cut away from him here. I'm sorry if you guys can hear that. Sam is asleep, but he's like growling in his sleep. It's a precious thing. So, okay, this is the moment that you find out what the fuck is really happening here. The flower on the Baron's shoulder is saying, I'm hungry. And the Baron says, well, it's time to eat. And the camera goes up to that weird pipe thing, and all of these holes begin to form in the surface of it. And these threads come out of it. And you guys, this could have been designed in so many different ways. And they went with this, which is absolutely nightmarish. Like, I wouldn't ever think to even go in this general direction, never mind this specific design. I don't know if this is like based on a plant that exists or where the fuck this freakish idea came from. But the nature of the plant and the way it works adds so much horror to the whole affair. Like, it just takes the creepy factor up to 1,000. It is remarkable to me how incredibly scary this becomes once you see how this works. I can't emphasize enough how much my mind was like rejecting what I was seeing, because it is not the kind of thing you see from One Piece usually. This is just a different animal. And the animation of the holes appearing in it also, I think it's trypophobia. I can't remember what it's called, but people who have like an aversion to seeing lots of holes in a thing in one place, it's definitely like playing on that sort of fear. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I wouldn't recommend that you Google it, because it is a real freaky thing. People have done a lot of animation stuff with it. And even if it's something that you don't think would bother you, once you see the images that come up, you start to be like, actually, never mind. Yeah, no, that really, really bothers me. But yeah, so the threads come down and seize whoever's like on the ground and begin to lift them into the air. And these threads, it's not like they shoot straight down. This is what I mean in terms of like the design. When I'm describing it, it sounds like a bunch of ropes come out and like drop and grab somebody and yank them back like they're bungee cords or something. No, these threads spool out into the air in very irregular patterns, like they're weightless. And then the tips of them float to the ground, wrap around somebody, and as like the threads like lift them up, but it doesn't seem like they're being retracted. It seems like the threads themselves are animated. It's the worst. I hate it so much. It's so fucking creepy. So it goes after Daisy, the very little girl, and Chopper interferes and saves her and gets her out. And he, turns into the larger versions of himself and is like beating the hell out of this plant trying to do something. But the Baron is like, good try and everything, but too late. And this is the first time I had offered Lily somebody with the powers of a devil fruit. So we see Chopper being carried into the air, and the father of Daisy is starting to walk away, and then he hears her call out and turns around and sees that Daisy is trying to save Chopper because Chopper saved her. Both of his kids run up and try and grab Daisy to save her. And their dad from far away is like, guys, come on, let's get out of here. And his eldest daughter, who has no respect for him at all, says, you're supposed to be strong, aren't you? Help us save the reindeer. And instead he comes and grabs his children and pulls them off of Chopper's hand. And they're like, Dad, he saved Daisy. Why are you just letting him go? And he slaps his daughter in the face. And she calls him a coward. And he doesn't argue with her at all. He's just like, yeah, I am. And I was like, yeah, you slapped your daughter because she told you to do the right thing. You 100% are more than a coward. Like, come on. This is when the Baron says, show me more. I love to see pirates fighting amongst themselves. And I was like, what does that mean? And we cut back to Mustache Guy, who is talking to Luffy about how the Baron said specifically that seeing the camaraderie between Nakama like fills him with rage, and that he wants to chop them into pieces and make them all feel the same pain that he has felt. So this is when Chopper says, my Nakama is going to come and save me, and he'll beat you to a pulp. The Baron is like, no, he won't come. And they go back and forth like this. And the more faith Chopper shows, the more angry the Baron becomes. And he's just like, stop saying it. They're not going to come. And I hate this. We turn Chopper around and he sees his friends embedded in this weirdo plant. And there's like this effect in the animation that almost makes it look like they're surrounded by like, what's the word I want? It's almost like mercury, like moving silvery, So the Baron here says, Nakama, Nakama, Nakama. That's all they ever talk about. You will nourish Lily well. And the threads let go of Chopper and just drop him into it. And you don't see him like hit, but you do see Lily go, hum, and eventually begin like making chewing motions with her mouth. It is, I mean, you guys, truly horror movie type stuff. So freaky. At the moment that Lily makes that motion, it's like Luffy can feel it. And he like sits up and is like, I've got to get out of here. And he opens one of the doors and flees from this mustache guy, and apparently like chose correctly, because he winds up actually getting away. And I like to think that he has such a connection with his crew that he felt what happened to Chopper, and also that was what led him to choose the right door. That it was like an instinctual thing. He knew what direction to go in. And I don't know that that's correct, but that's what I'm thinking. And this is when Muchi wakes up, because apparently feeding Lily is what regenerates them and makes them come back to life. And he's super happy to see his friend. Ah, you guys. So yeah, he says, go back and join the others. And Luffy shows up and is like, I am going to fucking take you down. So we have a drawn out thing here, and I'm going to speed it up a little bit because I'm an hour and 15 minutes in, and I haven't even like really gotten to the fight, and the fight isn't the important part, I'll be honest. What happens here is Luffy demands to know where his friends are and is like, I am never going to let you hurt them. And this dude is like, LOL, that's really funny. They're gone already. And when he says, you say you'll never let me hurt them, and he starts giggling like this is truly the best thing he's ever heard, which is like, once you understand the pain that he's in and seeing it in somebody else, that it gives him like some comfort. It's a real weird, like, again, just get therapy. So Luffy is about to try and fight him, and he just keeps firing arrows and like holding him in place doing this. Eventually there's only his head free, and he like does shoot his head forward. He says something with the boy with the phallic nose has just died. I was like, really? That's what we're saying? Okay. So Luffy's head is the only thing that goes forward, and he sees Zoro. And he had caught one of the arrows in his mouth. And what I had thought was going to happen right here was that he was just going to like jam the arrow into the plant, or somehow manage to hand the arrow to Zoro, who is a fighter, and it would like, he would revive and fight back using the arrow. I thought the arrow was going to play into this somehow. Spoiler alert, it does not at all. He literally just opens his mouth in horror, and the arrow falls out of his mouth onto the ground, and that's it. There's nothing with the arrow, but I really thought that was going to be something. So at this point, Luffy is certain that all of his friends are dead. He really thinks like, that's it. I fucked up. They're all gone. And the little girl, Daisy, is the one who's like, no, they're not gone. I can hear them. I can hear them cheering for you. And I don't know if we ever find out exactly where this like connection comes from, but I like the fact that her name is Daisy because she's a flower, and that somehow she's like able to hear. So yeah, the mustache guy with all of his tunnels, he retrieves Luffy's body. And yeah, this is the moment where because they're like trying to take care of him and revive him. And she's like, yeah, the Mr. Reindeer is looking for you. He's asking where you are. And I really like the animation here because everybody's their normal like appearance, but Luffy is very gray. He's like dark, you know, it's like he's in a totally different light source or something. And nobody can hear them except for Daisy, apparently. So that's helpful. This leads to, of course, the big attack where Luffy has decided that he is going to go up against this fucking plant and the Baron, and everybody who is left has decided that they're going to help him as much as they can. I love Luffy jumping in front of Mustache Guy and catching all of the arrows on a shield made out of rock. This is a really good moment. It's a badass moment for him. And he shoots forward with his fist and punches this dude in the face. And it's one solid punch, but the way it's animated makes it look like he punched him like 6 or 7 times. And he turns and does the mustache salute to his mustache guy. You guys, that was so moving. It's such a silly thing. And I was just like, oh my God, he gets all teary-eyed because, you know, nobody's left who even knows that salute anymore. He tried to get Luffy to do it earlier and Luffy was nonplussed and just didn't. And then he does it for him in this moment to just be like, I'm doing this for you and all of our people, you know? It was just really sweet. So Luffy jumps up and he bashes this fucking plant, which starts to shoot this sort of weird rainbow-ish light out of it. Very weird looking. And I was definitely thinking, hey, I don't know if you want to get caught in that rainbow light, but that feels like a bad deal. And it's just so weird seeing him fight this weird shaped creature, you know? It's just not... it's just all so strange. So he punches it enough that it begins to fall apart. And it's looking like, sweet, he won, it's breaking, and they're all going to like fall out of it. And this is when Daisy says something is wrong. The voices are coming from somewhere else now. And he turns around and sees this image that I am still like trying to understand. It's like the whole plant is made of arrows. I am not getting this. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't know if it's supposed to be that the arrows are like that's where he was getting the arrows from, was that this plant is made of them, or if it can just like transmute its shape into other things or what. But it's like been broken open And there's all these arrows sort of hovering and clustered inside. I could not make sense of this. I don't understand it. And he says, where are they? And then we see Lily's face and all these holes opening. And it's the worst. It is the worst, you guys. And the Baron says they're right here. And Lily explodes out of the Baron's back and has all of his friends like in pods wrapped up. And this is really giving Envy from Full Metal Alchemist, the like horror aspect of this animation. At this point, the Baron is like just a carrier. He's barely even participating here, you know, like he's talking, but it's very much like he's a puppet. And he says, die. All of these arrows that had been like in the air turn and begin to head toward Luffy. And there's literally millions of them at this point. It is completely out of control. And he says, every single one of those arrows symbolizes a day of loneliness I endured after that storm. They are the number of regrets I've suffered from suddenly losing every one of my beloved nakama. And we get to see, again, the like images of the storm. And Luffy is like in the midst of this, completely shot through with arrows, and his eyes are white. So it appears that he has been taken over as well. And Daisy runs forward and she says, Mr. Reindeer and the others are still alive and they're cheering for you. And it's like Luffy can hear her, even though this thing is attempting to take over his will. He's got such a creepy like color to him in this scene. And so he's like walking forward. He looks like a straight up porcupine with all the arrows sticking out of him. Still walking forward, saying, my nakama, whatever it is. And telling the Baron to give them back. The Baron is truly horrified that he is still walking and able to attempt to save them. It's like it's breaking Luffy's will that he's after. And let's see. Daisy says that her hearing has always been good. This is when she's talking to her dad. I heard everything you told Mr. Reindeer behind that grave earlier this evening. And my hearing is just really, really good. I can hear the faintest sounds. I just pretended not to know. You're always trying so hard to keep us happy. And her dad has a moment of real like, oh my God, I feel like such an idiot. And she's like, but that is because you really are strong. And I liked that especially because, yeah, he did a shitty thing with just being like, get away from Chopper, let him die. But I can't blame him too much. It's like he's holding on to the only thing he's got left and saying, you are strong for the way you keep fighting for us. That's not wrong, you know? So he decides here that he's going to do something, and he sneaks up behind the Baron and draws an arrow, and Lily is like turning and coming at him, and he lets loose as his daughter is yelling, don't give up. And that arrow just busts right through Lily. It is, guys, Lily looks so creepy now. It's a much more like Feed Me Seymour sort of imagery happening at this point. But yeah, Lily explodes in this like green burst, and all of these like bits come out of her, and instantly all of his friends on the island and all of the people in the stands and everything turn into plants, and all of the arrows that had been impaling Luffy and were littering the ground vanish like they were just illusions. And the bits that fall out of her, I'm guessing, are like supposed to be the remains of his friends. And the Baron just completely dissolves into tears and begins desperately like picking all of them up. And it's like a moment where I was really actually feeling bad for him. Like there was a frantic quality to it. And he turns around and screams, "Unforgivable," and has completely lost the plot. And Luffy is able to get him because he gets a drop on him. This dude is very, very distracted. And everything turns white and becomes this weird, like, sketchy animation as he punches this guy. And it's like he has a vision from being punched. And he's saying all of his friends' names and saying, "Please don't go. Don't leave me alone." And then we see the photo of them all. And they're like talking to him and saying, "We're really sorry to have gone. And we love that you kept the memory of us, but you really should have forgotten about us." Or I'm imagining a better translation would be like, "You needed to let us go after that night. We don't mind. You should have found some new nakama." And he says new nakama, like that just never occurred to him. And they said, "Look, like them." And Luffy is surrounded by his new friends who helped him out. And he wakes up, it's light out, and he says, "I thought I was going to die." He sees all of these people like standing over him. And I'm sitting here like, where are his people though? Where are they? Because I know they're fine, but like, where did they go though? Like what happened? And he starts to sit up and it's just like in so much pain. And he says, "I couldn't have done it without all of you guys." And, I really liked this. He's giving Osan credit and everything. This is when he hears Daisy yelling, "Mr. Reindeer," and she is running toward him. I really like the way the camera is upside down at first, and then it turns over as he's sort of getting his bearings. And all of his friends are coming up over the crest of the hill, and the sun is just coming up, and Luffy, who is on his back looking at them from like upside down, he just smiles with satisfaction. It's so weird, guys. We see Usopp here with no hat or anything on his hair, and I'm sure we've seen him that way before, but I didn't remember it at all. And they all ask him, "What are you doing sleeping out here?" So I guess it's supposed to be that they just don't remember what happened. And he starts laughing, and that's the end of the movie. It's just like, it's a weird ending where I was like, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to think about. Like, it wiped their memories or what? Like, you know? But anyway, yeah, I really, really enjoyed this. It was so creepy, you guys. It really, really was. I really liked this. This is the sort of thing that I would be willing to show people who didn't know One Piece, because I feel like even out of context, it really works as a movie. So, all right, I'm going to wrap this up, but thank you again so much, Max, for commissioning this. This was super fun. And I feel like this is a movie I would watch again. I really do. I wish that there was a better way to watch it than just like downloading a file, but what can you do? All right, everybody. Thank you again. And until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.